2008. Barack Obama is elected the 44th President of the United States. Beijing hosts the Summer Olympics, and Michael Phelps wins 8 gold medals. 25 banks fail, and following the fall of Lehman Brothers, the economy falls apart. The Phillies win their first World Series in 28 years. The Giants stun the undefeated Patriots in the Super Bowl, thanks to the infamous helmet catch. The Lakers and Celtics renew their NBA rivalry, with the Celtics finishing on top, and the Red Wings win the Stanley Cup. No Country for Old Men wins Best Picture. Amy Winehouse wins Best Song for Rehab. Twilight hits the big screen, and Heath Ledger blows everyone away with his posthumous performance in The Dark Knight. Oh yeah, and nobody will ever look at Albuquerque, New Mexico the same ever again. 2008 was a mixed year in the theme park industry. Big plans were being made. Some parks and chains were starting an exciting new chapter, while others were trying to protect their very existence. Problems that were either self-inflicted or a result of a failing economy. These are the events that changed the theme park industry from 2008. Not every story was top 10 worthy. Here are the best of the rest. And now for the top 10. March 4th, 2008. Six Flags and Totweir, a member of Dubai Holding, announced the partnership to develop a series of thrill-driven theme parks scattered all over the Arab world. This would feature Six Flags Dubailand, a 5 million square foot park that would be the first Six Flags park to be developed outside of North America. Six Flags was just one of many companies making agreements to build parks in Dubai, joining DreamWorks, Universal, and Busch. The park would have 6 sections, themed to Six Flags parks in the US: Magic Mountain, Fiesta Texas, Great Escape, Great Adventure, Great America, and the main area being called Thrill Seeker Plaza. Like many of the grand plans for Dubai, the financial crash stopped it in its tracks. 2 years later, Totweir failed to make their payments to Six Flags, and Six Flags terminated the contract. They would find a new partner in 2014, and construction even began in 2016. But in 2019, the project was officially canceled. When the Mall of America opened in 1992, it featured a big indoor amusement park. This was known as Knott's Camp Snoopy, later dropping the Knott's. Still, Cedar Fair was the owner of the amusement park branding of the Peanuts franchise. In 2006, the Mall of America and Cedar Fair failed to reach an agreement on a license, and the park needed to be rethemed. It remained open under the name The Park at MOA, and they got to work on signing a new IP. March 15th, 2008. The Park at MOA reopens as Nickelodeon Universe, everything rethemed to the various Nickelodeon TV characters, and introducing 2 new coasters. One was Avatar Airbender, an Intamin surf rider, spinning its riders up and down in a halfpipe. The other was SpongeBob SquarePants Rock Bottom Plunge, a Gerstlauer Eurofighter, featuring a 75-foot drop at 97 degrees and 2 inversions. There would also be a new drop tower called Splatosphere, built by Moser's Rides. The park may have been in flux 2 years prior, but by 2008, it was back and better than ever. June 2nd, 2008. Crowds gather in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina to see the Eagles and Moody Blues put on a concert, celebrating the grand opening of Hard Rock Park. A group of investors got together back in 2003 and had this idea for a music-themed park, and in 2006, they signed an agreement with the Hard Rock franchise. They thought they could bring in 3 million guests the first year, with a jump of 9% after that. The park would open with 5 roller coasters, the main attraction being the B&M Sit-Down Looper, Led Zeppelin the ride. Despite positive reviews, the park was suffering. With the economy falling apart, loans were hard to come by, so they couldn't advertise as much as they wanted. They couldn't find new investors. People weren't traveling, as gas and hotel prices spiked, and they had to close early for the season. Before the summer was even over, Hard Rock Park filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. This wasn't the end for Hard Rock Park. They reopened in 2009 under the name Freestyle Music Park, But the bad economic conditions that haunted them in 2008 only got worse in 2009, and they faced multiple lawsuits from everyone who lent them money or services. After the 2009 season, it would never reopen. It seemed like a good idea and a good location. It was just the wrong time for Hard Rock Park. In 1999, a small amusement park opened in Branson, Missouri called Branson USA. It wasn't successful and shut down in 2001. In 2002, Hershend Family Entertainment came in and bought the park, overhauling the property and reopening it in 2003 as Celebration City. Hershend already had a park in Branson, the highly praised Silver Dollar City, and their idea was to operate this as a sister park. It would be open later in the day and closing late, encouraging guests at Silver Dollar City to come to Celebration City and end their day, enjoying a laser and fireworks show at night. When the park reopened, it would feature 2 new coasters. One was Jackrabbit, an E&F High Miler, and the other was Ozark Wildcat, an 80-foot-tall, 2,600-foot-long GCI wooden coaster. October 24th, 2008. Hershend announced the following weekend would be its last. They called it a shift in the business strategy of the company, fueled by an unsustainable economic situation. They wanted the property for something that would work, and they talked about redeveloping the site into an aquarium, perhaps a retail center with dining, anything that would bring in money. As the Hershend president and CEO said, "We need to make smart, forward-thinking decisions in a tough economic climate." Today, the site doesn't look much different, and is now home to the Woodland Hills Family Church. When Custom Coasters International went bankrupt in 2002, its engineers went off and created their own company, the Gravity Group. They would get their first job in 2005, building Hades for Mount Olympus, then the Voyage for Holiday World, and they would continue to make major coasters, but didn't have trains to go along with their designs. They had to rely on PTC trains, the same ones that CCI used on all their coasters. In 2008, they introduced the Timberliner. They advertised these as being able to steer through curves, featuring a shock absorber, on-ride sound, being able to get launched, and they would have wide 2-across seats, and a rounded lap bar that came down from the side. The Gravity Group wanted to put this on Voyage, but they ran into issues and could never get this to work, so this was first introduced on Wooden Warrior at Quasi in 2011. These have been in use now for 12 years, and they're generally loved by enthusiasts. A great addition the Gravity Group desperately needed. In the middle of the 2000s, Cedar Fair was wheeling and dealing. For a company that's known for being very stable, between 2004 and 2007, they bought Six Flags Worlds of Adventure, changing its name back to Jaga Lake. Then they bought all of Paramount's parks, and then they closed Jaga Lake. Because of all this activity, in 2008, a lot of their properties would look different. All of the Paramount properties had the Paramount name removed before the 2007 season, but the Paramount branding was still on all the rides. Cedar Fair had the right to use them for 10 years, but after 2007, they chose to terminate that deal and not pay Paramount their licensing fee. When all the old Paramount properties opened for the 2008 season, there would be no more Top Gun coasters. Great America, Kings Island, and Canada's Wonderland would all now feature Flight Deck, and Carowinds would use the name Afterburn. You also wouldn't be able to find Italian Job Stunt Track. Kings Island, Kings Dominion, and Canada's Wonderland would all now have the Backlot Stunt Coaster. Carowinds would no longer have the Star Trek-themed Borg Assimilator. This was now known as Nighthawk. Kings Island would no longer have Face Off. It was now in Vertigo, and that's just the coasters. There was a mess of flat rides that had to be renamed and rethemed also. At the same time, 3 of the parks would get not-so-new coasters. Transplants from the park that Cedar Fair unceremoniously shut down the year prior. Dorney Park would welcome in Possessed, formerly known as Steel Venom, and Superman Ultimate Escape. Kings Dominion would get a big-time B&M floorless called Dominator, using the same name from Jaga Lake, and known as Batman Night Flight when it was a Six Flags park. Finally, Cedar Fair gave Michigan's Adventure their one and only coaster in their tenure, that being Thunderhawk, again using the same name but also known as Serial Thriller. These hand-me-downs were a cheap and easy way to give some of their smaller parks something new, but they had their sights set on building up another one of their new additions. May 4th, 2008. Canada's Wonderland opens Behemoth, a B&M hypercoaster. When other chains were taking a step back, Cedar Fair went all in. They had never bought a B&M hyper for any of their parks up to this point, and by now, this model was 9 years old. This was the first major investment made into Cedar Fair's new properties, and over the next 2 years, 4 of their 5 new parks would have a new coaster over 200 feet. The tide had shifted for these former Paramount properties, but perhaps none more than Canada's Wonderland. Paramount put some major coasters in their parks between 1993 and 2005, but Canada's Wonderland was left out. Sure, they got 6 coasters during this time, but they never got that signature attraction. Cedar Fair had the opposite approach. They saw Canada's Wonderland as a major destination with lots of potential, and they would get a flood of monster additions over the next 10 years. This really turned around the image of Canada's biggest amusement park. When X opened in 2002, there was nothing like it. 175 feet tall, 215 foot drop, the first coaster ever to have seats on either side of the track, and an extra set of rails that spin the seats 360 degrees. It was so innovative and so complex. It was a big reason aerodynamics went bankrupt, and it caused Six Flags a major maintenance headache. Still, it was operational for 5 years, but by the end of 2007, the ride needed help and Six Flags had to take action. When Aero went under, S&S bought their catalog and even built a 4th dimension coaster of their own in 2006, Aijanika at Fuji-Q Highland. They built their own train for this one, and Six Flags hired them to build new ones for X also, these being much lighter and causing less wear and tear on the ride. This would be part of a $10 million overhaul, changing the whole ride experience. May 24th, 2008. The ride reopens as X2, now with dark red track and dark gray supports, equipped with on-ride audio and a fireball in the last element. Over the years, the audio and the fire effect have become less consistent, but the new trains have worked out perfectly. 15 years later, X2 is still going strong. January 17th, 2008. Six Flags stated their intention to trim $60 million from their budget, half of that coming from advertising, focusing more on the internet than TV and radio. The rest of it would come from cutting full-time staff and getting rid of expensive, inefficient rides, as we saw the end of Deja Vu at Great America and Over Georgia, as well as the Chiller at Great Adventure. They were also in talks of selling a few of their parks, while trying to get a foothold in the Middle East, the aforementioned Six Flags Dubai Land. Their additions were very small that year: 2 indoor Wild Mouse coasters themed to the Dark Knight, a relocated Batman clone, and a GCI wooden coaster. All this trying to attract new visitors for a cheap price. As new CEO Mark Shapiro said while looking at Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia, "Nice ride, but we'll never get our return on investment with it." The chain hadn't posted an annual profit in years. It was facing $2.4 billion in debt, and they owed $288 million to stockholders by the end of the summer. When Dan Snyder took control of the chain in 2005, the stock price was $7.25. By August of 2007, it was trading for $3.67 a share. Now, it was down to $1.03. September 24th, 2008. Moody said it does not expect Six Flags to be able to meet their upcoming financial obligations. They said Six Flags may have to rely on selling their assets or refinancing. Mark Shapiro was desperately trying to implement his changes to turn the chain around, and this included more licensing deals, promoting the Dark Knight movie, Coca-Cola on the umbrellas, Ben & Jerry's ice cream inside the park, and cutting ticket prices to bring in more people, after his idea of raising prices in 2006 backfired. He would also bring in a weekly concert series, trying to bring in preteen girls and their families. Dan Snyder had confidence in Mark Shapiro's vision, and he said, "Sometimes it takes longer than you would like." But between their existing problems that were spurred on from years of overspending and the overall economic climate, Six Flags could not avoid filing for bankruptcy less than a year later. From the grand plans for Dubai, to Hard Rock Park, to Celebration City, to Six Flags, there's been an overarching theme coming out of these stories in 2008, the economic crash. It started going south in the late summer of 2007. Confidence started to slip, and it only got worse. By the summer of 2008, everyone knew we were in for rough times. For amusement parks, it was harder to get loans. It was harder to find investors. Gas prices were at record highs, and the only saving grace for the industry in 2008 was the crash didn't happen until near the end of the season. The year-round destination parks took a hit in the fourth quarter, but the pain for the regional parks was only deferred, as hard economic times carried into 2009. Still, attendance would, at best, level off in North America and Europe, after seeing solid growth over the last 3 years. Canada's Wonderland saw a 4% increase thanks to Behemoth. Great America and Great Adventure saw a modest 1.5% increase because of the Dark Knight coasters, but the bigger destination parks were flat at best, with most of them seeing a drop up to 3%. The events of 2008 would change everyone's outlook on advertising, investment, staffing, and it proved when good times get bad, that's where good leadership really pays off. For the responsible, they dialed back but didn't make drastic changes. But for the reckless, their chickens came home to roost. That's a wrap on 2008. Let me know what you think of this list, and if there's anything you would have added. Also, let me know of any theme park memories you have from 2008. For me, I wasn't really into coasters anymore, but I did take a family trip to the East Coast, and while I was there, I got to visit some of the parks I used to read so much about. Busch Gardens Williamsburg, King's Dominion, Six Flags America, Six Flags Great Adventure. That's the trip where El Toro took over my top spot. Also, Coney Island, Dorney Park, and my second trip to Cedar Point. That trip didn't get me back into coasters, but I'm glad I got to go and ride a lot of rides that are gone now. Big Bad Wolf, Volcano, Great American Scream Machine, so many others. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters, please give me a sub. I have a playlist with other years in this series. Also, check out my links below for my Discord server, and my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you also happen to be a baseball fan. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.